Alrighty, we are live with another episode of the Couch Scouts podcast. Welcome in everyone who is tuning in via the stream, or if you're watching on a later recorded episode on YouTube or on the podcast. We just want to say welcome in. I'm here with my co-host Anthony Bills, the man, the myth, the legend down in Texas. How's it going down there, man?
It's good. Beautiful weather this last week. It's starting to get that summer vibes, so hopefully we can go outside a lot more.
How's the quarantine treating you in Texas? Are you even able to get outside right now?
Yeah, we're not like on a crazy shutdown or lockdown. We can still go out and kind of. It's not as, but you can still go out, for a little bit and do the things you need to get done.
Yeah.
But everything's pretty much closed down other than the essentials everywhere. So.
Yeah, it's crazy times for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just want to say welcome in to everybody, however your life is going right now. Hope that you can find a little bit of time to get away and get some sports news, some fantasy football news. We got a super good episode for you today, we're going to be doing some weekly NFL conference previews or divisional previews. So today we're talking the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, and the New Orleans Saints. And then we're going to be talking some rookies coming up in the draft, like Anthony's top 10, my top 10 for fantasy purposes. And then we'll do some more rankings with those after the draft once we see their landing spots. But we've got some listener questions as well, so it's going to be a good episode. I'm excited. You want to start with anything, Anthony? Any sports news or NFL news that you want to touch on? Otherwise, we can jump in.
Man, it's a good question. I'm trying to think if there have been any kind of major signings or key signings since we last recorded. Off the top of my head, but so no, I'm good. Let's jump into it.
Cool.
Let's get going, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, I guess before we should jump in, I should say you can find us on Instagram if you're not already following us. A couple different ways that you can support us is follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on Twitch, which is the thecouchscoutspod, and then subscribe to us also on YouTube. If you miss a portion of this video, we upload all of our videos onto YouTube, so you can find them there. And then also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. And if you want to chat with us, our DMs are always open. You can slide right in. If you want to reach us on personal Twitter, Anthony is dat_dude_AB, and I am at KOTS Fantasy. So if you have any questions, anything you want to know for the upcoming season, hop in. I guess I should talk about this fantasy league that I just launched today. It's going to be coming up for the 2020 season, but with dynasty leagues, it's like there's always plenty of time to jump into them. Like, it's never too early. Really, the only thing is it could be too late. So I just launched it's a 84 team college football themed dynasty league. So a lot of people have been asking me, like, oh, so is it college players? No, it's just NFL players. It's like your standard fantasy football league, but it's just themed after college teams. So imagine, instead of your team name being the Titan Truckers, you would be like Ohio State for Anthony, Wisconsin for me. You could be the ACC, the Big 12, Pac-12, a couple independent teams in there. So there's 84 teams, 7 different divisions. You got the 5 Power 5 conferences, and then 2 other divisions, the Mountain West and the Independents. And then that basically plays out like 7 separate fantasy leagues throughout the season. So each conference has their own player pool. So it's not spread out between the 84 teams. It's spread out between 12 teams in each division. And I created like a formula of ranking, kind of like the college football ranking system. So we take strength of schedule, we take your record versus all of the teams in the league, we take wins, losses, a couple different things to give you rankings. And at the end of the season, so you play weeks 1 through 12, and then week 13 is going to be your conference championships. And then after that, you either qualify the top 8 teams in the whole 84 will qualify for the college football playoff. Essentially, I call it the college football championship just because personal reasons. But so the top 8 teams qualify for that. The winner, the top prize is $500, which isn't bad. The runner-up gets $260, and then it just kind of trickles on down from there. And then so that's the top 8, and then the next 48 teams that are ranked are going to be thrown into different bowl games. So we have like the Orange Bowl, we have the Rose Bowl, the Gator Bowl, like whatever bowl you can think of. And so you have a list of major bowls and a list of minor bowls. And so just based on where you are ranked at the end of the season, you're going to get paired up. And basically, if you make a bowl, if you make a major bowl, you're going to win your money back regardless. If you win a minor bowl, you're going to win your money back regardless. So it's pretty low stakes. The cost is $35. It's not a lot, but like with 84 teams, that's how you can get big payouts like that, is just because so many teams are in there. But yeah, that's kind of my 10 cents. It's an auction draft. So the way dynasty leagues work, if you've never played in a dynasty league, is you basically have one draft, and that sets up the course of the league for however long the league goes for. So rather than playing each year and you draft a new team, you have to like you get Julio Jones one year, and then the next year you get the 12th spot in the draft and you get Melvin Gordon. This way, whoever you draft gets to stay in your team as long as you want them to. The only way that you acquire new teams is through free agency, through trades, and then through the incoming rookies that are coming out of college into the NFL. So with the auction draft, a lot of people, it's been around for a while, auction drafts, so it's definitely it's becoming more popular. But basically, I heard it put today this way, like Anthony, if he joins this league and he gets the 101, the first pick in the draft, he didn't have to do anything to get the pick. It was basically just given to him out of luck. And if I want that pick, if I want Christian McCaffrey or Patrick Mahomes at that point, I basically have to pay Anthony a lot. It's going to cost me a lot to get that pick for something that Anthony didn't necessarily have to work for. And so how the auction works is that everyone bids. Everyone gets the same amount of money. You get $1,000 of like virtual currency to bid to create your roster. So if instead of Anthony just automatically getting Christian McCaffrey or me having to give him 3 picks for him, we basically, the whole league goes into a bidding war, and you place your bets for how much you want to pay for a certain player. So it allows you to get the players that you want on your team, unless someone outbids you. But 2, it also, you don't get stuck, like you're not the 12th pick in the first round where you're like, oh man, I know I'm drafting at the turn, but I feel like I missed out on all the good players. So that's just kind of a unique part to it. I've done a few auction drafts, and it's definitely becoming my favorite, just because you really get full control over how you want to do it, and it just makes it fun because you get to kind of do like some math. It kind of feels like you're giving out money to sign these players, so it just kind of gives you more of that feel of like an NFL GM who has like a allotted amount of money that he can spend on free agents. So it's called the College Football Championships Dynasty League. If you are interested, you can DM us. Otherwise, I have it on my Twitter, which is at KOTS Fantasy. The link's on there. But you basically just go in, you fill out a form. If you want more info, you just list the teams that you would be interested in, whether it's Ohio State, Michigan State, USC, Notre Dame, any of those teams. And then we basically will go through and sort through the requests and then grant you access to the team, and we'll get going. So that's it kind of in short, just to introduce it to some people. But if you have any questions, that was like the short version. But I have like the entire list of rules. If you're a nerd like me and you want to read all the rules, I recommend it. So and Anthony's in, and he's Ohio State, so we had to we figured we thought maybe Michigan, but Never.
I guarantee you I can do better now. But.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's my plug for the college football championships dynasty league. So, hope you guys join. It'd be fun to play with some of the listeners. If you've never been in a league like that, we'd be happy to help you out along the way. But
right.
What do you say, Anthony? You want to jump in?
Yeah, where do you want to start? Let's do this.
Alrighty, so like we said, we're going to be talking, we're going to go through a couple different divisions over the next few episodes as we head into the NFL draft, talking about the few teams that are in each division, who's on their roster, maybe a few needs that they have in the draft, but also just like the overall fantasy value of the team. So I'm going to switch our screen over here to the NFC South, and we're going to start with I would say the favorite, the New Orleans Saints. And so we're going to break it down like this. We got quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and we have a couple of different stats in there that you can look at to see how they fared in 2019, and then we'll kind of give our own projections of what we think they're going to do in 2020. So obviously the Saints won the division last year, and they bring back Drew Brees on a 2-year deal. And then, sorry, I just lost my place. Okay, so they bring back Drew Brees, a 2-year deal. So he's entering that deal right now. So he's got at least 2 more years. If you're in a dynasty league, you're just thankful to have him. I would say because he's up there in age, he's going to be found like later in most startup drafts, but also you can get him for cheap, and then you get a lot of value in return. Last year he was the QB 22 overall, so he finished 22nd among quarterbacks. He missed 5 games with injury, which played a big part of it, but still impressively threw 2,900 yards, 27 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions, which the last 2 years his interception rate, like his touchdown to interception ratio, has been just off the charts, and you see it here with a 74.3% completion percentage, which is incredible. And he's throwing to the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football and in the NFL. So that's Drew Brees, and then they got Taysom Hill. I think they put a first round tender or a second round tender on him, Anthony.
Yeah, I believe it was second
round. So Taysom Hill's back for another year. I don't see him getting any action unless there's some kind of injury to Brees, obviously, but he'll be in there all the time on the field, lining up as a runner, a receiver, but definitely not someone I would say right now that you can rely on as far as fantasy purposes. But if you're like in a 2 quarterback league, he's at least worth having, because he's going to get you some points every week, whether he catches a touchdown or rushes a touchdown, and there is always the chance of him having to come in and play quarterback if there's an injury, because no Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah. Wow, dude, the Twitch channel is really zoomed in on my face. I just noticed that. I'm like, oh crap. But if you are talking dynasty wise, and if you have Drew Brees, if you can get Taysom Hill as a third stringer, like if you have a backup that's good, to play with.
Yeah.
Because Taysom Hill looks like they believe in Taysom Hill as the future. And Brees signed a 2-year deal, right?
Yep.
Sean Payton slipped up, I think, and kind of said that this is Brees' last year. So, I don't know. It's possible that Taysom Hill could be the guy next year. So, I mean, if you have a dynasty, you can still have Drew Brees for 1 more year, maybe 2, and you can have Taysom Hill right there to slide in to start when Brees is gone.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know how good he'll be as the overall starter, but it's just if you do want to have him on your roster.
Yeah, exactly. How about at the running back?
I'm sorry, dude. I keep seeing this camera, and it's super close to my face.
Oh, I see it now. Okay. Let me see if I can.
It's good. It's messing with me.
Let me see if I can make it smaller.
Just catch it in the corner.
How about the running back position, Anthony?
Kamara is a beast, man. He kind of had a down year last year. Maybe that was the Drew Brees injury, and it kind of just the game plan changed, with Teddy So I would expect Kamara to have a bounce back year.
Yeah.
It's still not a horrible year. He was still top 10 back.
Right.
You know, but only 5 touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. You kind of expect more than that, maybe double that on each side. So.
Yeah.
And obviously Latavius Murray was, but yeah, Latavius Murray pretty much had the same numbers other than less rushes, so less yards, and less receptions. But
yeah.
six touchdowns combined, or 6 touchdowns total for each of them.
Right.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Kamara's definitely the best, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look at that, I think the most concerning thing is, like you said, the similarities, because, I mean, basically, if it's a PPR league, Kamara scored about 40 points more just based on receptions, and maybe like a couple points more just based on yards, but they're pretty similar. And then you start looking at the actual rounds that these players are being drafted in. Kamara is being taken fifth overall in the first round. That's about his average right now. And then you could get Murray in the 16th round, 190th overall. So those are the kind of things that you have to start thinking about when you go into dynasty leagues, is how much value do you want to spend on a certain player who, and the case is this with running backs, is that they occasionally do have a down year. But I think the thing to highlight is Latavius Murray, that he's a great late round pick, and there were some injuries last year with Kamara, a couple of ankle injuries that held him out. So if you're looking for value, I would try and target Latavius Murray in that 15 to 16 round range of your fantasy leagues if you're doing a dynasty league, just because he's proven prior to this to be a starting running back in the league, and he's in a great backup role.
Yeah. So look at it this way, people. If Kamara's going, average draft position is around 5. So if you look at that 5 and 6 range, think of who you could get there. You could potentially get Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams. So you could grab one of them and then get Latavius Murray way later for similar production according to last year. I don't think it'll happen again, but that's just something you can be like, okay, I can get one of the top wide receivers in the league here at 5 instead of Kamara, and I can get Latavius Murray way later if I need to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what Noah's explaining about. If you look at where they're drafted, first round, 16th round, that's a big difference in draft position.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw that the Cowboys signed Aldon Smith. Is that April Fool's or is that legit?
No idea. Let me check.
I just read something that they signed him to a 1-year deal.
They need I don't think it would be a April Fool's thing. They need pass rushing, so.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been April Fool's if they said Jadeveon Clowney or something.
Right. Yeah, no, it's real. It's pro football.
Yeah.
Pro football rumors. Nice. I like that. It's a good deal.
That's good. Add some depth.
Now they can literally address wide receiver or secondary in that first round. So
yeah.
Let's stay on track.
Yeah.
I'll talk about Cowboys all day.
Yeah. Okay, so next is wide receivers. I think the thing that you have to be very impressed with about the Saints is they have the number 1 wide receiver. They have last year had the tight end 7. They had the running back 9. And they have Drew Brees, who basically facilitates it all. So it's a high-powered offense. I think with most teams, if you saw names like Kamara, Thomas, and Jared Cook all in one, you'd be like, okay, I'm kind of concerned where these targets are going to go, how much opportunity or usage each player is going to get. But with the Saints, they love to air it out, and Drew Brees loves to spread the ball around. So Michael Thomas, his stats in 2019 just literally off the charts. He was the wide receiver 1 by about 100 fantasy points. His current ADP is 3.5, so he's being selected basically in between after Christian McCaffrey and after don't know why I can't think of his name right now. I think it might be Saquon. After Saquon and after McCaffrey, and then basically it's Michael Thomas as the first wide receiver. So last year 149 receptions, which I think the next closest was like 1 111 or something. 1,700 yards, 9 touchdowns, and like I said, 374 fantasy points. So if you have him, he's the clear number one choice. I don't think that I would be willing to spend any amount of like draft picks to acquire him, just because you're not going to find a deal that's going to come out in your favor. It's going to benefit the owner of Michael Thomas right now. But I mean, if you have him, just keep riding him. He's coming in. I think he's coming into his 4th year. Is that correct? Or is it only his 3rd year? Fifth year. Okay. Okay, that was his 4th year. So, still a young guy. Definitely the number one wide receiver in fantasy leagues and in the NFL. Ohio State alum. Represent. How about Emmanuel Sanders, Anthony? We talked about him a couple episodes ago, just about his free agent value. But what do you feel like he brings to the Saints?
A lot. I love it. Super reliable. I don't think he has a big issue with dropping balls. And you see what he did to the 49ers offense when he got traded there.
Yeah.
They just took another step. So this is huge because the Saints offense has been so elite for years with only one top receiver.
Yeah.
Now they have two. They have two, and I wouldn't be surprised if they attack one in the draft as well, just to get some more speed on the outside, because Michael Thomas is really good. And he's just a really good route runner and slants. Those posts, just the real quick get the ball to him.
Yeah.
And Sanders is more of that middle down the field, stuff like that. So if they can add a deep threat to them as well, that's what Ted Ginn has always provided.
Yeah.
He provides a little bit, but he's getting up there. So I mean, Emmanuel Sanders, I look for him. He's wide receiver 30 last year. I would expect that to go up.
Yeah.
I think maybe not super up, but I could see him in the top 20 just because Drew Brees he's going to get him the ball. Drew Brees spreads the ball out so well, and Michael Thomas demands a lot of attention. So
yeah, he'll definitely be in that range. I think in the top 30.
15, 15
I mean, he's
25.
playing with the best quarterback that he's ever played with, in Drew Brees, and I think as far as the 3rd receiver goes, I'd be interested. Who are you thinking? Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
for 1 year, 2 years.
Old, so is Drew Brees.
Yeah.
It's debatable. It's 1A, 1B.
There you go.
I got you.
I think as far as the 3rd receiver goes, you mentioned a guy like Ted Ginn. They have Traquan Smith, who I mean, he's had a lot of hype over the last couple of years, just really hasn't been able to get going. So I'm hoping that with the addition of a true wide receiver 2, that it'll open up opportunities for Traquan Smith or Keith Kirkwood to kind of find their role in the slot. So that'll be interesting to see as the Saints develop their offense. But I mean, these are definitely the key weapons that you're going to want to choose. And like we said, barring any injury, these are the ones that are going to score a majority of the points. And then just to finish it up, Jared Cook, who, I mean, this guy, I don't know how he keeps putting up these kind of numbers, because when he was with the Rams, it seemed like he would catch every pass and get a whole bunch of yards but never score a touchdown. And then when he was with the Packers, it was like the exact same thing. And then he finds himself in New Orleans last year and goes off, and it's just like his touchdown total was through the roof, and I think he's in his upper 30s. And I think at one point he was going to retire, but decided to come back. So he finished as the tight end 7 last year. You can still get him in the late 15th round or 14th round, and that's basically because of the age, like we mentioned. So if you need a tight end 1, I don't know if I'd 100% recommend him as your first choice, but if you need a second one in the later rounds, he'd be a great value.
Dude, this guy, he's only 32.
Yeah.
It seems like he's older.
I think I
thought he was 38.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I think I got him 32? Confused. I think I get him confused with Ben Watson. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So
I hate Jared Cook. Just because of that catch that he made against the Cowboys.
Oh yeah. The sideline catch.
I hate him so much. Yeah, no, Jared Cook's legit. He's really good, and obviously, Breeze, he kills it with tight ends. So
right. So,
like you said, I don't know if he's gonna stay at that tight end 7, but that's really good. I'd say that's really good value in the 14th round.
Yeah, great value.
Super great
I
value.
think his touchdown upside is what gives him so much value because, I mean, he hasn't been proven to be a huge touchdown catcher, but with the Saints, especially last year, 9 touchdowns among tight ends, which is great. And
Yeah.
obviously you kind of look at that deficit between Alvin Kamara's receiving touchdown. He only had one, so that might be evened out, balanced a little bit in 2020. But still, he's a good target, and he's trusted with Drew Brees, and we know that they like to go down the field, and he's a go down the field kind of tight end. He's not. I wouldn't say so much like the dink and dunk. He likes to you like to utilize his speed and agility down the field. So yeah, that's the New Orleans Saints, the NFC South New Orleans Saints. In my opinion, I would still say the favorites to win the division in 2020. I think we talked about that on a previous episode. Are you in agreement?
I agree. That home field is just too much. And until we actually see Tom Brady in this new offense, like, yes, he had no weapons last year, but he kind of sucked even
Yeah.
without the weapons. There's been many times Tom Brady didn't have that many weapons, and he still was balling. So I'm like, I think Brady will ball out for Tampa, but
Yeah.
until I see it, I'm still going to New Orleans because we know what we have.
Yeah.
Drew.
Yeah. The weapons. Yeah.
Dude, the quarterbacks Emmanuel Sanders had played for, though, I was just thinking about it. Dude, he had Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning,
That's right.
now Drew Brees. This dude has literally played with 3 of the top.
I forgot. I forgot he was
all
with the
time.
Steelers.
Maybe not top 6. I want to put Big Ben up in the top 6, but top 10.
Yeah.
That man has played with some big time quarterbacks.
Yeah. Brock Osweiler.
That's funny.
Yeah, I forgot that he was with the Steelers when he started. That's right.
Yeah.
Dang. So
And then,
yeah,
and then AB kind of took his spot. So
he better give his agent a lot of money for all the teams that he's been able to get with.
yeah.
That's
And
nice.
I mean, Jimmy G ain't no slouch.
No, I mean
He's
he played
fine,
great. He
but-
played great with the 49ers.
Yep. All right.
Okay, next, NFC South, the Falcons. What you want to start? You want to start quarterback, Anthony? You want to break that down
Yeah.
for us?
Yeah, let's do it. Matt Ryan. You know what, dude? Matt Ryan has always been a really solid fantasy quarterback. So many times, I'll just be so focused on getting weapons, and then I'll get to 7th or 8th round. I'm like, oh crap, I haven't even paid attention to quarterbacks yet, and all the top ones are gone. Then I'm like, you know what? Let's get Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
13th is his I guess average round right now. He's QB 11 last year, but they struggled last year. Just as a whole.
Yeah.
Falcons started off so bad, and so many expectations for them, and they started off so bad. I would expect them to be a little. I think they're going to be better this year. Hopefully they assure that offensive line. But Matt Ryan, yeah, I mean, he's going to throw 4,000 yards every year. He's going to be in that 25 to 30 touchdown range, sometimes a little more.
Yeah.
The interceptions, 14 isn't bad, but 26 and 14, you'd like to see the touchdowns a little higher and the interceptions a little lower. But
Yeah.
I'm
for
not
sure.
complaining about 26 and 14.
Yeah.
He obviously has Julio. I think he's the best overall wide receiver in the NFL, just because of his athleticism and everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, Michael Thomas is the best fantasy, but Julio's right there.
Yeah. I agree.
Julio's going to put up at least 15 every week, almost.
Yeah.
'Cause he's going to get you the catches. He's going to get you the touchdowns.
Right. Yeah, I think. I mean, he was the quarterback 11, and that's the thing that just keeps surprising me. Like, we'll get to Tom Brady as well, but like you see quarterbacks like Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, even though they're being drafted so late in startup drafts because of their age, they only have like a handful of years left. They still. This is why they're the best quarterbacks, because they keep putting up these consistent numbers. Like, anytime you can be, I think, how old Matt Ryan is? I think he's like 34, 35. I want to say,
I think you're on that.
but still to be putting up 4,400 yards is super impressive. But yeah, I think this could be potentially one of the best, as far as talent wise goes, the best weapon wise team that he is playing with in 2020. Julio, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley. If they go get another player, it'll be quite interesting if they go and get another receiver in the draft or a tight end in the draft. So we'll see.
Hey, I'll say this: he's consistent. So okay, yeah, he is 34. He'll be 35 next month.
Okay.
But listen to this consistency. In the even years, if you look at his career, almost every even year is better than the previous year he had. So last year was 2019, right?
Yeah.
So 26 and 14. 2018, 35 and 7.
Okay.
2016, 20 and 12. 2016, 38 and 7. So 2020, he's pulled. It's time. Like, if he keeps going with the route that he's gone his whole career, because you look at it, his whole career, every other year, it's a really great year, like a career year, and then an average year like last year.
Yeah.
So 2020, he could be poised for a big year.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's something to. If you look at his stats, because I'm a big stat guy, I mean, there's analytics and all this. Stats don't lie. Sometimes they do. Tom Brady and Jameis Winston last year, but I mean, if you look at it, his quarterback rating is better in the even years. His touchdowns are better, all of that. So
yeah,
Matt Ryan could be a good steal if you get him in the 13th round.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, like, as far as his yards go, I mean, that doesn't make up for the 14 interceptions, but it definitely helps, just because you're going to get a few of those points back just by way of the offense. And they did. I think they were one of the best second half teams in 2019. They needed some coaching changes early on in the season, and once they got that done, it worked out for him. So, like we said, the weapons that he's bringing in, he brings in at the running back position Todd Gurley, who it's kind of up in the air what he's going to do in 2020, but a lot of people think that a fresh start for Gurley is going to be great for him. He brings a great, like, I would say, running vision ability. He's not a power runner, but he definitely has great power, like when he gets past the first level, and he also adds a lot of receiving capabilities as well, which you saw with the Rams, not so much last year, but in the 2 years prior. So I think that the departure of Tevin Coleman last year and then Devontae Freeman this year, I think this is a huge upgrade for them, getting a true running back one. And regardless of what Gurley's health is in 2020 or what it was in 2019, he still carried the ball 220 times. And for me, that says that he wasn't, if he was hurting, but he wasn't hurting enough where they had to keep him under 200 attempts. Like, if you're still putting out your star running back at 200 attempts, it just tells me he might have knee arthritis, but it also seems manageable. But I think the thing to notice was his 3.8 yards per carry last year, which you'd like to see him get above 4 for sure. But you also talk about 12 rushing touchdowns. That kept him fantasy relevant, finishing as the running back 14. And the Rams struggled all of 2019, and they were down a lot more. Usually they're up a lot more, so he gets more involved in the passing game. So I think that it'll switch for him in 2020. Just kind of I'm trying to think what's the word I want to say. The storyline for Todd Gurley is going to switch in 2020. I think he thrives there. You want to add anything on Gurley?
No, I mean, I think I mentioned it last week when we were talking. I just expect Todd Gurley to be back to maybe not his full self, but 90% of it.
Yeah.
90% Todd Gurley is about 95% better than every other running back in the NFL.
Yeah.
So he's I totally agree. And I saw a story. Him and Julio were already super tight. So he's going. Like the day he was released, Julio came over to his house and was like, "Dude, come to Atlanta, come home."
Yeah.
Happened. So
that's good.
Like you said, the storyline, it just fits.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's a good story. Todd Gurley should be coming home and get back to not MVP level, but definitely Pro Bowler level. So
yeah, that's good. And then as far as if you're looking, this could be for redraft leagues or for dynasty leagues, more so for dynasty leagues. But Brian Hill's most likely going to be the backup unless they go into the draft, which is a possibility. So keep your eye on that. But right now, Brian Hill's going to be slotted as the second back. Last year, only had 78 carries, 323 yards, but that positive 4.1 yards per carry. So you can find him in the late 20th rounds of startup drafts. So he's definitely a guy that I would take and just stash on my bench. just simply because of the storyline of Todd Gurley's health. Like if there is some kind of injury, a knee issue, and he goes down, you're going to want the guy that's going to fill in with the high-powered offense like this. So Brian Hill's a guy to own, and then also Ito Smith and Quadri Allison. I think it's Allison, actually. I think I typed that wrong. But I would probably choose Allison over Ito Smith, and then Brian Hill over those two, if you're looking for which one to own in a dynasty league. But if you have the extra spot this offseason, it wouldn't hurt to pick up a couple of those guys just to stash for now. How about wide receiver? You talking about Julio Jones, Anthony? Talk about what he did last year, what your prediction is for him this year, with a healthy Calvin Ridley on his side again.
Yeah, the Calvin Ridley pickup is huge for them, and obviously they love him so much they got rid of Mohamed Sanu.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if they maybe pick up one more receiver.
Yeah.
In the draft, maybe another Bama guy, maybe not Judy, but maybe Ruggs if he falls to the second round or something. But I think Julio's numbers will be very similar. The thing that I see improvement on will be touchdowns.
Okay.
Because 6 touchdowns isn't that much for Julio.
Right.
But obviously, like we said, Matt Ryan was up and down. He had 26 touchdowns. I'm surprised 26 touchdowns, only 6 of them were to Julio. So, and with with Austin Hooper being gone.
Yes.
Julio's going to have to put up more. I know Hayden Hurst, whatever, they have a lot of faith in him, but honestly, when they made the trade, I was like, I don't even know who Hayden Hurst is, really.
Yeah.
Maybe he will be good, yes, but he's not Austin Hooper, so.
Yeah.
I expect Julio's catches to be around the same, maybe more. Maybe the yardage should be the same, because he's always around there.
Yeah.
Pounds I would see going up.
Yeah.
That's the one paying.
I like that.
Calvin Ridley is obviously a beast, man. That dude, look at the numbers he put up if you see on the figure here, and that was only 13 games.
Right.
So 3 more games, 66 catches in 13 games, that probably equals to around 80 catches in 16. So
yeah,
maybe 1,000 yards for another 3 games.
Yeah, could have had 10. Could be a 10 touchdown season. Had it not been for the injury. So I think that's going to be a key for the Falcons in 2020 is just the health of both Julio and Ridley. And if they do add a third guy, I mean, it's crazy, but this could be an offense comparable of that with the Saints. Like you have, I think it was Adam Schefter or someone tweeted out the entire starting offense for the Falcons, and they're all former first-round draft picks since they got Laquan Treadwell as well.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I forgot about him.
And Hayden Hurst as well, even though he didn't see much playing time because Mark Andrews got a lot of the snaps in Baltimore, but he comes over. He was a first-round pick as well. So it could be a high-powered offense.
End, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an athletic tight end, kind of like Austin Hooper, so he should fit in the scheme well.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. And we can just touch on him real quick. Like we said, he was with Baltimore last year. Right now, you can get him in the 19th round of startup drafts. Which, if you had a startup draft prior to the trade, you probably got an amazing deal because you just got a starting tight end in the 19th round. But his ADP is probably going to shoot up. I would say at least up to the I would say 200 range, if not a little bit higher. But he's definitely a guy to grab that you can still get cheap because people haven't seen him produce a whole lot in his career. So I would say that the feelings are still pretty mum on what he's going to do. But he's same thing. He's with a quarterback who's a future Hall of Famer and a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. He could really fit into the offense well, get a lot of targets, and I'm excited for him. I mean, it's always good when a player who hasn't been getting, he was a first-round draft pick, but he just wasn't getting the opportunity. So it's always exciting when a player like that gets a fresh start, kind of like Gurley, or you want to see what they're going to do with a change of scenery.
Absolutely. Falcons are going to be good, man. Like you said, they were one of the best second-half teams last year.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to win the division, but hey, that NFC South, it seems like every year it's a new team. Obviously the Saints the last couple of years has been the one, but for the longest, that's the thing about the NFC South. This year's the Panthers.
Yeah.
This year's the Falcons. Then it's the Saints. The Panthers again.
Yep.
So, dude, Panthers are going to struggle as much as I love Teddy, and we're about to talk about them. But the freaking Falcons, Buccaneers, and Saints, those are going to be some amazing battles. Wouldn't be surprised to see 45 to 42 scores, with those amazing offenses.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll definitely be the most exciting division to watch and keep up with as the NFL season progresses. But a team that you just mentioned and a quarterback you just mentioned is the Panthers, who they're much improved, I would say, in 2020, and they potentially could finish fourth in the division. I think it's going to be a race between the Panthers and the Falcons for third, but it's crazy to say that a team like the Falcons with all first round picks on their starting lineup and a team with DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, Teddy Bridgewater could finish last. That just says how good the division is, because almost all four of these teams could probably compete for at least second in almost every other division, maybe minus the NFC West, I would say. But you want to start with Bridgewater?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool.
Go for it. Yeah, Teddy. I love Teddy Bridgewater. He kind of got the wrong end of the deal in Minnesota, and then obviously, he's been the Saints the last 2 years, so he only got to play minimally, obviously, when Breeze was out. But if you see when he played in those 5 games, man, they went 5-0.
Yeah.
Fantasy-wise, that doesn't help you, but if you look at his numbers, decent. 1,300 yards in 5 games, it's just under, 260 a game, I guess.
Yeah.
9 touchdowns, 2 picks. So, he's not going to turn the ball over. I don't know if he's going to light up the scoreboard with 30 touchdowns, but if I don't know what his ADP will be. He's definitely not going to be quarterback 33. He'll be higher.
No,
obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's going to be a starter. He's going to be running.
Yeah.
And if you look, we'll address Christian McCaffrey in a minute, but if you look at all the catches that McCaffrey had.
Yeah.
Okay, and Teddy is really good at those dink and dunks. He's really good at that. So
yeah.
McCaffrey and Bridgewater should be a really good, deadly combo. But
yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know. If you can get Bridgewater, you can get him in the later rounds.
Yeah.
If you don't have a solid starting quarterback, just tag him up. But he might be better in a 2-quarterback league or kind of as a backup role. I traded him for a first-round pick. I remember I woke up with the offer the day he signed with the Panthers, and it was a first-round pick for Teddy Bridgewater. I texted him. I was like, dude, should I do this? He's like, absolutely, right now.
Yeah.
I thought so. I just
don't even wait.
I'm like, I just woke up, so I want to make sure I'm thinking right. But I think a first-round pick's way more valuable than Teddy, but
yeah.
So I love Teddy. I just fantasy-wise, I don't love him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Panthers get out of him, but same thing. I feel like this has been the trend that we've been talking about, new players coming in with a fresh start. This is finally Teddy's chance to honestly be the clear starter for a team in a long time. He's kind of been backup after backup after backup after his injury in Minnesota, so I'm excited for him. There actually wasn't any ADP data on him up to this point. I think it'll probably come out in April, but he hasn't been even selected. He hadn't been selected in leagues up until this point. He had just been going undrafted or in the free agency thing. So, in dynasty leagues, basically Anthony swapped a free agent player for a first-round draft pick. That's incredible value. So that's just that also just shows how players' value changes throughout their career, throughout season to season. So yeah, I'm excited for him, and with the new offensive coordinator, a fresh start for everyone. So it should be a really efficient offense. Almost 68% passing completion. So I think that is to his advantage and to the rest of the receivers, where Cam Newton definitely was not up at the 68%. So that'll be an improvement in the offense as well. Running back position, a guy that you inherited on your team, helped you lead you to your first dynasty championship, Christian McCaffrey. What do you kind of touched on all of his receptions, but do you expect him to kind of plateau and remain the same in 2020, or do you think he does even better? Which would, I feel like he just keeps surprising everyone. But what are your
Oh
thoughts?
man, I have no idea. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, how do you top that?
Yeah.
How do you top that? Maybe he gets more attempts, rushing attempts, and
Yeah.
less catches, but um, I think his I think the fantasy points he puts up will stay very similar, but the numbers are going to look different
Yeah.
to me, um, because I think the pass catches might drop off a little bit.
Sure.
You know, Kyle Allen is more of a gunslinger, like one to throw it around all the time. Bridgewater is a game manager, like so I think he'll see more rushing attempts and catches will come down. Not to mention Robbie Anderson is now with them, so um, Robbie Anderson will steal some targets from everybody on that team.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's still going to be number one, I would say. Whether him or Saquon or even potentially Zeke, we'll see how Zeke fits in with McCarthy.
Yeah.
But I would say he's definitely, if you're the number one pick, I don't know how you don't take this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty. I mean, you got the easy job if you have the 101 because there's really no reason why you wouldn't take Christian McCaffrey, and even Saquon's a pretty clear second choice. I think it's interesting to look at who we just talked about, Todd Gurley, who had 14 less attempts than Christian McCaffrey, but yet McCaffrey rushed for about almost 650 more rushing yards in 2019, had 3 more touchdowns on the ground, and his 166 receptions to Gurley's 31 is, I think it was 31, is insane. Like that is literally mind blowing. And this is a guy that is small, but he's quick and agile, and he's great at every little thing that he does, and that just goes to show. I remember when he came into the league, I was like, this guy's a bust for sure coming out of Stanford.
Really?
Like I honestly didn't see him being this good. I was like, he's gonna be. I thought he was gonna be like kind of like a Danny Woodhead kind of player, but his ability to actually run the ball, not just catch it, is. I mean, that's what he showed last year. Was like he's not just a pass catcher. He can take that full workload. Yeah.
Dude averaged 10 catches a game.
Yeah, I know.
That's insane.
Yeah.
166 catches in 16 games.
Yeah.
10 catches a game.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, if you're a PPR player and you have McCaffrey, if you had McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson last year, you basically a cakewalk to the championship game.
Yeah.
And at this point, I mean, I was looking at some of the backup running backs to Christian McCaffrey. I wouldn't say there's any notable ones. I have to check if Mike Davis is still. I think he's still rostered with the Panthers, so he would be a player to pick up in like very deep dynasty leagues if you're looking for to handcuff Mike Davis to Christian McCaffrey. But you could potentially see them grab a rookie running back late in the draft just to pair him up with McCaffrey, just to add some depth and assurance. So. I didn't really find there wasn't really any danger of McCaffrey losing any snaps at this point with who's behind him.
No.
Reggie Bonafide, I think that's the first player that I saw.
Yeah, Mike Davis is still.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so wide receivers, I would say not an increase, but an upgrade in 2020 for the Panthers. They, like you said, add Robbie Anderson, and you look at the 3 receivers here: DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel out of Ohio State, and then Robbie Anderson. The receptions go 87 for Moore, 54 for Samuel, 52 for Anderson. And the question that I've been getting asked a lot is, like, where does the acquisition of Robbie Anderson, who does that hurt the most in between McCaffrey, Moore, and Samuel? I think it's going to be a matter of time before we actually figure that out. But, I mean, Anderson's a deep threat guy, and honestly, I think that Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore are more underneath players who are, like, quick on their feet. They're going to be playmakers when they get the ball, so the Panthers, like, in the past have liked to get them the ball in open space and let them do something with it. So I think it could potentially help all 3 of them with Robbie Anderson stretching the field a little bit more. Do you have any thoughts on that, on who that affects?
No, I don't know. I think maybe just actually no, I don't. I'm sitting there trying to figure it out, but I don't. Uh, I think everybody will affect a little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
Because Teddy doesn't really throw the ball deep down the field, honestly. So, if anything, I think Robbie Anderson might be affected because he's not the number one anymore like he was in New York.
Sure.
But
yeah, that makes sense.
DJ Moore looks like a stud. You know, I saw your thing on Twitter. I think yesterday said start one, bench one, trade one, or something.
Yeah.
And DJ Moore was on there. I'm
yeah.
like, it was tough. Galladay, Sutton, and Moore, right?
Yeah.
I love DJ Moore, and I love him even more this year.
Yeah, I love Moore.
Year, so
Moore is good. I think I own Moore in almost every single one of my fantasy leagues, and I mean at this point I'm just super thankful because his ADP has just been climbing ever since. Right now he's at 17, and then you look at Samuel who's at 90 and Anderson's who's at 100. So he's definitely the best value. And if you actually go and look at his statistics and break it down, he's one of the most. He reminds me of like a Stephon Diggs, who is one of the most efficient wide receivers when he's on the field, in terms of getting the ball and then doing something with it. And anytime you have a receiver that's close to that 90 reception threshold, I think that's great. And he was 10th in the NFL in targets, so that's just something like that the Panthers want him to get the ball. And I think his touchdowns were down in 2019, but I would expect to see that increase. I project he's going to score 8 touchdowns in 2020. I think he doubles it.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. There was so much turnover in the quarterback position last year for the Panthers.
Yeah. Another thing, it literally just clicked in my head. As I was looking at these 3 receivers, and I'm like, crap. Baylor's new coach coming in, and then I was like, wait, new offensive coordinators from LSU.
Right.
So I'm like, honestly, I don't think any of these 3 guys' numbers will be negatively affected.
Sure.
Unless they just play bad. I think there's potential for all 3 of them to have a positive impact in their numbers because you see what LSU did last year with its offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. And Teddy Bridgewater, he's not Joe Burrow. But if there's a guy to distribute and just real quick passes, Teddy Bridgewater can be that. He's not going to be Joe Burrow, nowhere near it. But he's going to be able to run that style of offense and be successful to where you have DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Robbie Anderson, like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Thaddeus Moss was a tight end, but an athletic tight end. So
yeah.
So even going back to Christian McCaffrey, maybe his catches do stay up there.
Yeah.
I just completely mind blanked on Joe Brady being there.
Yeah.
This offense,
Yeah.
I like the Saints and the Falcons' weapons probably more. But then I'm like, wait, you know what? I like any weapons with that offensive coordinator. Let's see how he works in the NFL now.
Yeah, exactly.
He destroyed the best college football season in history for an offense for LSU last year. Now let's see what he does here.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll definitely be, fresh start for everyone. So if he comes and brings some just great offensive thinking, I think it'll be great for the Panthers. And I think at the last position, which we haven't touched, it was a player. The tight end position is a potential landing spot for a rookie, and it would be actually pretty cool to see Thaddeus Moss come to the Panthers because they've had Ian Thomas. He's a veteran tight end, but he hasn't been able to carry that workload of a tight end one for a team. And they had Greg Olsen last year. He leaves and goes to Seattle. So I think it's just kind of timely that he leaves. They get to bring in some fresh legs and a player who gets to develop. So if they targeted him in the draft, I think that would be great. But right now, Ian Thomas is the tight end to have. He has an ADP of 147, which is a 13th round. I think is a little bit high. Actually, it's quite high. I don't think I would spend a 13th round pick on him, just especially in comparison to like where Jared Cook is being taken. So he's been a player. There's been a lot of hype about him in the offseason multiple years in a row, and people are like, go get Ian Thomas. He's going to be the next guy in Carolina, but he hasn't lived up to it. So I'm expecting for them to make a move for a tight end in the draft.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah. Alrighty, should we move on to our last team in the NFC division?
Tampa Bay.
All right, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Um, I felt like we had a question last week that someone asked, where's Tom Brady going to be ranked in 2020 as far as redraft leagues, and I think we agreed like somewhere in between like the ninth and 12th, somewhere in between that range. But he comes in a probably some of the best offensive weapons that he's had in a long time, and paired up with another great coach in Bruce Arians last year. To pretty much, I think everyone's surprised he still was the QB12 at his age. You can get him basically for nothing in the 20th round, and you kind of know that you're going to only have him for I don't know, 2 more years, 1 more year. It's hard to say, but even people have been saying this for the last 5 years about Brady, like, oh, this might be his last year. So if you drafted him late in the rounds, like you've just been getting it's been paying dividends to you to have a top 15 ranked quarterback in dynasty leagues. But this actually surprised me too. He passed for 4,000 yards last year. I saw that and my eyes almost shot out of my head, but I just didn't realize how many yards he threw for. You know, everyone talks about, oh, the arm strength is there. He doesn't throw it downfield, but it just shows that he's efficient. And he's definitely in some kind of decline, not the same Tom Brady as he was before, but I think the 60% completion percentage is the one thing to notice, and something that he'll definitely need to improve upon next year in 2020. And I think with the weapons that he has, receivers being able to get open, I think he's able to do that. How about you, Anthony? What do you think? Obviously, it's an improvement over Winston. Do you think Tom Brady does better this year statistically than last year?
The 24-8. Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him put up, 35 touchdowns. I think the completion percentage will go up. I think the touchdowns will go up. The interceptions might stay the same.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I mean, it's probably it's arguably the best duo in football. You can talk about obviously Emmanuel Sanders, Michael Thomas, Odell Jarvis. There's plenty of them, but this is one of the best.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when there was talks about them maybe trying to get Antonio Brown, Bruce Arians was like, "We have the best duo in football. Why do we don't need that? That would just distract what we already have with these two and take away from them." So
yeah,
there's a lot of faith in these guys, and I mean, Mike Evans has shown out consistently throughout his career that he's going to put up touchdowns.
Yep.
So I would expect his touchdowns to go up. Godwin, like you've been super high on Godwin,
yeah,
and I'm with you. His numbers are going to go up. So it's very exciting. Tom Brady's gonna put up some crazy numbers, and the 235 20th round, sell the house.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
I don't think he's gonna end up falling that far. So I mean, if you really want Tom Brady and you have some faith in him, you're gonna have to snag him a little earlier, a lot earlier than that. But
yeah,
I love Tom Brady for this offense.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing too with like 2 quarterback leagues or a super flex league, is that you can have a guy who's been playing in the league for so many years, and like basically everyone's written him off. You probably already drafted some other quarterbacks thinking that he was going to retire, but you can still use him as your QB2, and he's still going to put up these kind of numbers, which is amazing. It still blows my mind. Definitely the GOAT. But let's talk about his running back situation. So this is another potential landing spot for rookies, and actually there's a lot less spots, I think, for these incoming rookies than we thought there was going to be after free agency. So a lot of the value that has been on this rookie class as far as the running backs, I would say, is decreasing, just because we know it's basically going to be Dobbins, Taylor, and Swift, and then like everything else is pretty much a logjam. So those are the 3 to own, and then after that, I don't know, I would probably go wide receiver at that point. But Ronald Jones is I will say good running back. I will not say great. I won't say bad, because I think he's definitely made some strides. He was highly touted out at USC, and then played in a bowl game against the Ohio State Buckeyes and got absolutely destroyed. And I think that was when I realized, okay, he might have just had a really great couple of years in the Pac-12, and it kind of showed. It kind of showed his first couple of years in the league, just kind of having trouble picking up the playbook. And I think that was his issue his rookie year. He didn't see the field much, but last year had 172 carries, 724 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, scored 6 touchdowns, and had 31 receptions as well. So he's definitely picking it up. But I think at this point, when you have a player like Tom Brady, you have the offensive weapons that you have. I think you got to go get a rookie running back with the picks that you have. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I just don't know if they're going to. I mean, maybe they will in the second round. But I think it's very telling that Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Devontae Freeman, these guys are legit.
Yeah.
Running backs that were on the market, and they passed on all of them.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that's telling that Bruce Arians must really love this guy,
yeah.
Or at least he likes him enough for now. But I definitely agree. I mean, it doesn't hurt to draft a running back.
Yeah.
One of those three at least, So we'll see, I guess. But I think his numbers will improve. 4.2 yards that's not bad. He was on a team he's on a team in an offense with Jameis Winston just throws the ball so much, and they're always losing because Jameis Winston's throwing 5 interceptions every game. So
yeah.
It's going to be different with Tom Brady. And, Tom Brady, he's done great with running backs.
Oh, yeah.
The ball. So
yeah.
I think he'll improve, honestly. I'm not going to draft him higher than, what his ADP is, but I think RB25, I think he's going to advance. I think he'll move up.
Yeah.
And we'll see, but I would love to see Dobbins, Taylor, or Swift, as well join him. So.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think, his value right now in the 9th round, I think is actually really, really great, considering there's no one like behind him at this point. But I don't know. If they do get another rookie running back, I think I still will probably take a stab at Ronald Jones, just because I don't. We know that Brady's going to rely on running backs a lot more. We've seen that in the Patriot offense. Like, he's had to rely more on the running game, and I don't know if Brady has had a talent, I would say, like Ronald Jones, just based on his speed and athleticism. I don't know if he's had that in a while. I think of James White, but he was small, quick and agile, great pass catcher, not so much in the run game. Sony Michel, more of that kind of bruiser, goal line back. I really compare Ronald Jones to like a Rex Burkhead, but just a better, more healthier version of Burkhead, who's a dynamic guy who has some speed, has some power, and some versatility in the passing game. So I'm not writing him off yet, but it's definitely gonna put a big damper on his value after the draft. So he's probably a guy that I'm waiting on. If I own him, I'm probably selling him. If I don't have him, I'll just wait to see what the Buccaneers do.
And what about your guy from Wisconsin? He's on the Bucks.
Dare Agumbawale. Yeah, he had a couple catches and a couple touchdowns last year, but I think the only thing is he's like a third down back, if that. So I don't see much more.
So was he Jonathan Taylor's backup in Wisconsin?
Was he?
I think so, because he's only been in the NFL for 1 year, I believe, right?
I think it's
1 year. So he was on the. That would suck. Imagine Jonathan Taylor gets drafted there and he has to lose his spot again.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate, but.
All right.
Okay, yeah, we talked about Chris Godwin, wide receiver 2 last year, and impressively his ADP is still 15. So you talk about Michael Thomas, who's the wide receiver 1, his ADP is 3. Chris Godwin is ADP 15. So kind of the same situation. If you drafted Godwin, I think his value is rising, but you could either spend your first round pick on a guy like Michael Thomas, which all of us would. We wouldn't hesitate to pick him, but if you're kind of stuck in that range of like, do I get Julio Jones? Do I get Devontae Adams? Amari Cooper? Like, you're most likely going to have a shot at Chris Godwin or Mike Evans in the second round if you decide to go a different route. So that's just a little my 2 cents on his value when you look at ADP like that, and then just where he finished last year. But 86 receptions, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns with the gunslinger Jameis Winston. I think I've said this before. I honestly think he gets close to 100 receptions in 2020 with Tom Brady. He reminds me a lot of Julian Edelman, just where they're gonna use him and line him up, and he's a big, strong receiver, similar to Mike Evans, but just shiftier, a lot more speed, and versatility where they can line him up. So I love Godwin. I'm not sure. I mean, he's being drafted in the second round. I don't think I could pass on him in the second round. If it was between Godwin and Mike Evans, I got to go Godwin.
I agree.
Mike Evans I feel like he gets a lot. His ADP is solid at 14. I don't know if I would rank him that high. I would probably wait until, he's not going to be available in the third round, but that's kind of where I would rank him. But in the last 4 years, he's put up over 1,000 yards in his first 4 years. So a lot of people kind of write him off. But when you look at the stats, like you said, you're a stats guy, Anthony. You can't argue 4 straight 1,000 yards receiving, no matter who your quarterback is, no matter what team you're on. He's going to put up solid fantasy points. So it just really depends on where you get him, what kind of value you place on him. If you're like, oh, he's my wide receiver 1, he might not put up those kind of numbers, but he's proven to at least be in that wide receiver, like that second to third round kind of value for a wide receiver. And I honestly think he does it again in year 5.
Yeah, no, it's actually been 6.
Oh, 6? Jeez.
6 seasons. Yeah, 6 straight seasons. Damn. Every single year of his career.
Oh, shoot.
So 4 is correct too, but
yeah.
6 is more.
I was playing it safe.
Yeah, no, you're good. Even as a rookie, man, he put up 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns as a rookie.
Shoot.
He's a beast. He's gonna put it up. The worst year he's had was 74 catches, 1,200 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So the touchdowns was only bad that year. That was it.
Yeah.
But every other year he's had at least 5, and honestly, 48 touchdowns in 6 years. So this dude averages 8 touchdowns a year.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
And he did that last year. So he's gonna put up 1,000 yards. He's gonna put up 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
We know that, but we just think that Chris Godwin will put up a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, either way, it's a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with either one.
Yeah.
So.
So we talked about the Antonio Brown interest. I don't think it's going to happen, but Brashad Perryman goes to the Jets, so it opens up a slot in the slot. I think Chris Godwin will line up there at times, but he can definitely do both inside and outside. So 2 players, if you play in dynasty leagues, that you can own are Justin Watson and Scotty Miller. Those are 2 guys that I've looked at that you can target. Both of them are pretty much not owned unless you play in a really deep dynasty league. I know I just picked up Scott Miller in our league, Anthony, but those are just 2 names to keep an eye on. But I would expect the Buccaneers somewhere towards the later side of the draft to go get another weapon for Brady as well, just to add some depth. But how about the tight end situation? They have 2 tight ends. Surprisingly, one actually is being drafted in startups and the other isn't, but the stats are pretty similar. So who is the guy to own in Tampa Bay?
It's really tough. I feel like the correct answer should be O.J. Howard, but that's tough because Cameron Brate he's productive when he's in.
Yeah.
He doesn't get as many snaps as OJ, but you see that the numbers are very similar except more touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think for the future it's going to be OJ Howard.
Yeah.
So obviously that's why I was saying it's tough, because I feel like the answer should be OJ Howard, but Cameron Brate isn't no slouch. He finished higher last year.
Yeah.
More catches, less yards, more touchdowns. He's more of the red zone threat. But OJ Howard is such an athlete and such a beast that you can, with Tom Brady, he's not gonna be Gronk. I'm not saying that, but with Tom Brady getting him the ball quick, and Tom Brady knows how to get the ball to tight ends, man. Like he's a genius at that. He's the best ever.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Drew Brees as well, but OJ Howard has a lot of chances with the athlete that he is to break him off and take it to the house, you know? Because there's some safeties out there that OJ Howard's just going to outrun. He's just that quick. He's good. He's athlete. So
right. Yeah, I think it'll be OJ Howard as well. I mean, if I'm OJ Howard, I'm like the second you sign Tom Brady, I'm putting myself in the gym. I'm getting myself on the field. I'm texting Tom Brady like, hey, when can we go out and throw and catch? Because, I mean, he has the opportunity of a lifetime. We know what Brady does with big tight ends like Howard, and Howard has proven in the past to be a dominant force. It just has been kind of a decline over the last couple of years. So his value right now in the 11th round, that says, yeah, he's Tom Brady's tight end. Like, that's pretty early to be taking a tight end who put up only 459 yards and 1 touchdown last year, but people are drafting him that early because they're expecting a Gronkowski type fantasy season. I don't think it's going to be that, but it's definitely going to be improved from last year. Okay, so that's it for the NFC South, and we will keep you guys updated on the next division that we're going to do, but we're going to try and roll these out just so that you have an idea heading into the draft which landing spots players might be going to, and then just talking about overall fantasy value for all the divisions. So that is that on the NFC South. We got a couple of listener questions to go into. The first question, it comes from at the Engine on Instagram. Who is your top draft prospect?
We're gonna get into this.
Yeah, that's pretty broad.
Nice.
But I say, for me, I would just say Chase Young. I would honestly.
You broke here. Sorry.
What'd you say?
It broke up on my end, so I didn't hear after the question.
I would say for me, Chase Young. I think you look what.
Oh. Yeah.
if I'm talking like offensive players only, it's a little bit obviously a different story. But I think Burrow is gonna go one just because of the need at quarterback. But I think any team would be silly not to take Chase Young number 2, and honestly, you wouldn't be silly to take him number 1 either if it wasn't for your quarterback situation. So for me, he's the top draft prospect. He didn't compete in the combine for good reason, and I'm pumped to see what he does on the field. I mean, Ohio State is just literally churning out these incredible defensive ends, linebackers, cornerbacks. Like, they have got to be some of the best prospects on the defensive side of the ball and offense as well. But you look at Bosa last year and then Chase Young this year, it's pretty insane to be able to do that in back-to-back years and also still be as successful as Ohio State has been. So that's for me.
Yeah, I just dropped my water bottle all over the place. No. Water, sorry. Yeah, Chase Young. I mean, there's he's very high number 1, and then the next person for me, just because you touched on Chase Young, I'm gonna say Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, Clemson.
A lot of people aren't sleeping on him, but a lot of people are. That I don't know how he's not the clear number 3. To be honest, this dude is a beast. You know, I watch a lot of Clemson football just because I love watching Clemson play, even though they kind of have been owning Ohio State. Isaiah Simmons, this dude plays defensive end sometimes. He plays linebacker. This dude played safety against Ohio State in the college football playoff. I'm like, what? Fields threw a ball down the field and it was intercepted, and I'm like,
yeah,
crap, that's what this dude has been playing.
Yes.
Defensive end and linebacker all night. Why is he playing deep safety all of a sudden?
Yeah,
he's he's an athlete, so I really like him, and he just fits the NFL because if you look at how these offenses have been going, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Next question is, do you think any teams will pick up Cam Newton? This is coming from at Oliva Matt. I think someone will, but I don't think it'll be until after the NFL draft, in my opinion. I think GMs kind of want to see where the quarterbacks fall, what their needs are after the draft, and then go get a veteran. I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think any team right now is in such desperate need or position that they're like, we need to go sign Cam Newton at this point. Um, I'm there's some teams that I think he would definitely fit on well, but I think it'll be after the draft, in my opinion.
Houston Renegades. they lost PJ Walker.
Oh yeah, swap him. Literally swap him from the Panthers to the Renegades.
Yeah,
it's an even trade.
I think it'll be an after draft or training camp type signing.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, and I'm not. But literally, it happens every single year. A franchise quarterback or somebody, a starting quarterback, always goes down. Whether it's preseason, training camp, whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to be like, Cam Newton, let's go. Let's get him. He's a veteran. He'll be able to run our system quickly. And I feel like that's the fit for Cam Newton.
Yeah.
So.
Good. I like that. Okay, last question came from Reagan Dykehouse at RE_Dykehouse. How can adding 4 teams to the NFL playoff actually be good? Actually, I think didn't they only add 2 teams?
Yeah, it's 1 team each side.
Right. So I think if it was 4 teams, that I would probably agree with you. Like, that doesn't make much sense. But it's only they're getting rid of the bye for the 2 seed, and then they're adding in an additional wild card. So I think it's a good thing for the NFL just to add another slot. I don't think I would like to see it grow more than 7 teams for what it is right now, but I think obviously it's a business. They got to do what they got to do for revenue and for the fans and the players, and give teams more of a shot. And it makes sense. I think it makes the regular season more important, just because that 1 seed is going to be so much more coveted, because that's the only bye. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's going to keep teams in the hunt longer.
Yeah.
Which means week 17 we're not watching I don't know, Brian Hoyer play instead of Tom Brady.
Yeah.
At the Patriots, we're going to see the stars actually playing because, hey, we need to get this 1 seed, or hey, we need to get this 7th spot, this final wildcard spot.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the Cowboys always finish 1 game out of the playoffs, and the NFL knows if the Cowboys are in the playoffs, they're making money. So,
heck yeah.
Being real here, like it's just more revenue coming. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly wouldn't mind if it was 8 teams on both sides.
Wow. Take away the bye for the 1 seed as well.
Yeah, I guess no. I guess you can't do that.
Well, I mean.
Yeah.
It would be like.
I would say so. I would just. I don't know. I wouldn't mind if it was that, and then you just have a bye week for everybody, and then you have the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7.
Yeah.
Well, no. Yeah, you know what I mean, like
yeah.
that. Which would suck because then obviously the 1 seed doesn't matter as much other than home field. So I guess that's kind of stupid. It's different. It's not basketball. It's not baseball. It's not the college football. So
no, it is not the college
make it work.
football.
I wouldn't mind it. I just wouldn't mind it because I get to see more games.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, either way, I think I'm excited to see an extra team in there, just because, for teams that are like bottom dwellers, it gives everyone a shot in the second half of the season, because it's like, okay, we only have to we can go clinch that last spot, and like just the mindset of knowing that there's an additional spot is just going to change the whole entire outlook of teams going forward, in my opinion, just like on rosters as they head towards the end of the season, and even the talk about expanding the NFL regular season to 17 games. I think this is a good way to keep teams engaged, because different players have been talking about, I've heard different radio stations and different analysis saying that players are going to start to just take games off and rest more. But I think by expanding the playoffs, it just keeps teams and players more locked in, knowing that they gotta play for an additional seed in the playoffs.
for sure. Well,
Do you?
go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just gonna say I know we don't have that much time left, so if we want to get into these top tens, or
Yeah.
what do you want to do to finish off?
It's up to you. We can either do it or we can save it in a couple days. I feel like it might be. I feel like it might be lengthy to talk about.
Do you?
I mean, we can.
I didn't think it would be, but I agree. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
Well, I'll just say this. You texted me your list and I put them up and then I made mine and they're like ours are so different and so I feel like it's going to be a good conversation talking about good back and forth and I'd like to have more time to do it. I think in my opinion.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Dope. Okay. So we'll save that for the next episode. We'll open up with that next episode so that we have time.
Yeah.
Any parting shots? Hot takes, trash talking.
Trash talk. No. I guess if you join this college dynasty league, Ohio State's still going to be the Big Ten champion. Okay, everybody, just know that. We're still going to win the Big Ten.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. But hey, this is a shot for a team like Indiana to finally make the college football playoff.
I get Northwestern's in there, man. If you're listening to this, you're a Northwestern fan, you want to get back into the Big Ten championship, and it's not going to be Ohio State playing against you because it's going to be Wisconsin.
Have you ever met a Northwestern fan?
No.
I didn't think so. I'm like Mike Greenberg.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Honestly, I haven't.
What?
Isn't that kind of weird? You never see anyone just oh, there's some Northwestern gear walking around. I guess unless you live in the city, in Chicago, you might, but you don't really see them. They don't get out much.
No, they're all super smart doing.
They keep their hats and hoodies locked in the closet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, me and Anthony are both in the same division, so I'm excited because in our other league, we're in separate conferences, so it'll be kind of fun to see how we fare in the auction draft and how we fare in the regular season. If we I'm trying to make the top 8, but honestly, when you throw in 84 teams, literally that's so many different fantasy players and outcomes that can happen. You really never know. I have another league, which is it's called the World Cup Championships, and it's modeled after the soccer World Cup. So we play for 3 years. And we started in 2018, so we play for 3 years, and basically for those 3 years you qualify. You have different matchups against different countries, and you get qualifying points, and then the 4th year, the top 32 teams that have the most qualifying points make it into the World Cup. And so we take the league, the money, and we cut it in half every single year, and we carry it over so that in the final year, the prize is gonna be $2,000 for the team that wins it. And my first year I went in and I think I won 11 games, and then this year I only won 6, and now I'm looking at my team crap. I got 2 years to go, and I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm gonna have another bad year and then miss the qualifying round. Should I sell teams or what? So it gets crazy when there's a lot of teams. There's so much more pressure because you want to be that top team.
Right.
I don't want to play I don't want to play in the Outback Bowl, Anthony. I've seen that with the Badgers too many times.
Bowl is reserved for Michigan.
Oh man, we got to find who this Michigan owner is going to be so you can become friends with them.
Man. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. It'll be fun for sure.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. I almost signed up to be Michigan, and then I was literally just gonna have an 0-16 team.
Oh my gosh, I would have
lose every game on purpose.
I would have kicked him out.
I was just gonna lose every game on purpose.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Well, anyways, yeah, DM us if you want to join. You can DM us on Instagram at thecouchscoutspod. Otherwise, reach out to us on Twitter. We'll send you the link to join. if you want to support the podcast, the best way is to subscribe to us on YouTube or onto Twitch, or to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And then, of course, follow us on Instagram and engage with us. We always want to talk sports and football and anything that's going on. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. We'll figure out which division we're going to talk about next, and we'll get that posted. And yeah, we'll just keep it rolling heading into the NFL draft. We got lots of new things and great content for you guys coming up. So, any last words, Anthony?
3 weeks from tomorrow, NFL draft. So
that's right.
Tuned in here because we're gonna try doing live mock drafts with you guys, the viewers, and the chat. So we'll start promoting that on Instagram. So be looking out.
Alrighty, for the Couch Scouts pod, he is Anthony Bills, the man, the myth, the legend. Actually, I was watching a TikTok today, Anthony, and I literally thought it was you. It was some dude with this beard holding a dog, and Joel's like, "Is that Anthony?" I'm like, I kind of had to do a double look. But anyways, Anthony Bills, the best facial hair that I know. He's a boss, and I'm Noah, and you guys can catch us on the next episode. We will chat with you guys soon.